Meeting of December 7th, January 4th, to order. It is a public hearing. Anyone that wishes to get up and speak, please state your name and your address. Come to the podium when we do. Board members, have you had time to review the minutes of the meetings?
Yes.
I have.
Can I get a motion?
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of December 18th? 7th, sorry.
Can I get a second?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3-0.
One abstain. Bob, you abstained? Bob?
He can't vote it. Has to
No,
be-
he's abstaining.
You're right. Robert, you're going to abstain? You're going to abstain
Abstain.
on the minutes from the past meeting? Yeah. Okay. Just for the record.
I read.
Chairman's update. I'd like to wish everyone a happy new year. Glad to see everyone here. I'm going to ask Chris to step up and report of anything new.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you to the board. I share that Happy New Year with everyone. And I want to mention, as I talk about coming up with a work plan for 2024, this is a good board. You guys have done a really good job. Things are a lot better than they were when I got here.
Thank you.
Process is improved. It's a work in progress, but process is improved. We're gonna, work on improving them further. Majority left. We had some things in motion, and things have been on ice. But my hope is that we'll sort of, get those procedures in place and maybe improve the process for you all, because you're working so hard. But it's a great group of volunteers, and I want to mention that. I think it's important. And now we have a wealth of experience being added to that. So. Looking forward to 2024. I don't have anything other than that. We have a couple of pending applications that are probably months off, so I don't think anything to report this time.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would like to welcome Bob Long to the planning board with us, and he is a wealth of knowledge, and I look forward to working with you. My dad served with Bob
Yeah.
a million years ago, so.
81 to 86.
Yep, and they actually were in the hospital together not that long ago. We thought they were both,
Last year.
so it's, I'm glad to see you making a comeback, and I'm glad to have you involved, and I look forward to working with you, so welcome.
Looking forward to it.
I offer the same.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Durkin, Consulting Engineers Report.
Do you want me to go through the whole thing, or case by case, or?
Just, we'll take your reports as that public hearing gets called. But did you have anything else to add?
Since the report,
Yeah, into the report that,
not since I submitted the report to the planning board yesterday.
Mr. Chair, can I make a suggestion?
sure.
Maybe, since we're taking Twin Spring Estates first, he can talk about that, and then as we open the public hearing, then discuss the other things that are on here. Unless there's anything on here that's not on the agenda that you wanted to go over, which I don't think there is.
No, I can talk about Twin Springs. I was approached, through the Inspection Service Department for what I believe is the last lot of the Twin Springs development. And so, my understanding is, in order to, the K form, needs to be completed, all the provisions.
I believe we're a little backwards on that.
Okay.
And Chris maybe can steer us straight. K-Farm is a final completion,
Yes.
and Twin Springs, Mr. O'Neill is not here tonight for a final completion. No, so he's on the next hearing.
Oh, he's on the next hearing?
Yeah, yeah. So the K-Farm, I believe that Riverside is looking for the K-Farm. So that may have come to you wrong out of inspectional services.
Okay. it came to me as a building permit, and I
Yep.
approved it, but then I was told to put it on hold because it needs to be resolved. It's some
It's
business
tonight.
that I'm not
Okay.
fully aware of.
Thank you for that input. Board members have any questions, anything to add?
No.
Nancy, do we have any new submissions? None. Okay.
Mr. Chair, would you like to take a 10-minute recess?
Sure.
Because the public
Make
hearing
a
for
motion.
Twin Springs is until 7:15, so make a motion to take a
Aye.
temporary 10-minute.
I'll second that.
recess.
Motion passes 2-0. Thank you. We're going to take a short recess. It's now 7:15. I'd like to call the meeting back to order. Next on the agenda, which is a public hearing, is Twin Springs Estates. They're asking for an extension of approval on a definitive subdivision permit. Mr. O'Neill?
Hi, my name's Lou O'Neill. I'm here representing Twin Springs Estates. We're in here requesting an extension on the definitive subdivision plan.
May I ask, how many house lots do you have left on that subdivision?
By left, you mean
Left to
undeveloped?
develop, yes.
There's 2 lots currently with permits filed, building permits filed with the building inspector to be built on. And everything else has been permitted and either built or in process.
So we're looking to, Mr. O'Neill's looking for an extension. I get a motion from a board member?
Are you looking for 1 year, 6 months?
1 year is fine.
Usually 1 year. It's a public hearing if you want to ask if anyone's here to comment on it, but I think
I just figured we get how long
I
is
think we know
that?
they're all
yeah,
what they're
1
all
year
here
is the
for.
standard, since there's 2 pending building permit applications, 1 year. The subdivision itself is largely complete. Everything's been put in the roadway, everything's been final, binder, top course, things like that.
Yeah,
So, a year,
yeah, a year's fine, Chris. Thank you.
I think that would be appropriate.
Board have any other questions? This is a public meeting. I will open it up to the public. Anyone here in favor of the extension, or anyone here in denial of the extension? Hearing none. What's the wish of the board?
I would make a motion to close the public hearing and then take the vote.
Is it the public hearing? You close. So, we have made a motion, but do we close the public hearing?
Yeah, motion to close the public hearing
Okay.
first. Then
Make a motion to close the public hearing at this time?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to grant the extension to Twin Springs Estate for 1 year.
1 year.
Okay.
I'll second that.
No, we had
Can you
just,
take the vote? He seconded.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. One question, Mr. Noel. We had given you an extension before on this,
Yes.
and we had, Nancy, I believe, sent out some notices to come in, and no one came in, so. Just let me know, so
Nobody came in.
no one came in.
Okay.
So you're still in existence.
Is that good or bad?
No, you should answer those notices from the town. So are you still plowing your own?
Yes, I was in 4 weeks, what was it, 4 or 5 weeks ago?
Yeah, this was, that last one was up.
From
in
that
June.
letter, I came in, yes.
Okay. Yeah. And
There was a
that prior to
request,
June.
which I've been doing for 20 years,
Yeah.
John,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
All right, just an understanding.
Okay. I do have a request for you, though.
Okay.
Could you sign the permits? Because it's the planning board, that's the only one I heard from the building inspector this morning that wasn't signed off on. And the DPW, and engineering.
The building permit?
Yeah.
applications?
They were filed back in October.
I can-
Oh, one was.
I usually check those, is that okay for the
Yeah.
board?
Yeah,
since the extension's been granted.
One issue was that one lot that they thought wasn't released, and it actually was released and sold 2012. So I was kind of surprised, and I did bring Larry up the document to show him, because I think he had a question on it at that time.
But
But,
Mr. Chair, I think one of the issues is you sort of skipped, hopscotch, over a lot. And then, so the
well, we
concern
bounced
was-
all around because you're building it as a custom high-end home. So
Yeah.
what you were looking at for somebody that could afford the neighborhood and then have a lot, and they would choose their lot when we built it.
Yeah, so then the concern becomes, are all the utilities on the road complete up to the furthest lot?
Yes,
And they are, so.
yes.
But that was the concern.
Yeah, no, we spent a couple $1 million putting in the road infrastructure before we even built the first house in phase one.
Yeah, no, it's good looking.
Yeah.
Well, okay. That's all I-
you'll handle this and
Yep,
I appreciate that.
I'll check those off for the planning.
Like to see it move forward.
thank you.
Thank you, have a good night. Enjoy your meeting.
Thank you, you too.
The next hearing is also a public hearing. It's a continued public hearing. It's 1631 Broadway, site plan review. Permit, master plan, hillside protection permit. Mr. Maggie, Attorney Maggie, sir.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. For the record, Attorney Richard Magnan with an office at 194 Central Street here in Saugus, representing the applicant, Maddie's and the Wong family present here. I think Bobby's here, Dennis is here somewhere, Mike Touchette, John Barrows from Mashonda Engineering, and Mike McEwen from Dennis Myers Architecture. As you know, this is a continued hearing. We've been back and forth with peer review comments, responses to peer review comments, the town planner's comments. We've made revisions per those comments, and this is the next stop in that progress of coming to a mutually agreeable final plan. And I will turn it over to Mike at this point.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Mike McEwen from Dennis Myers at the Architects, Manchester, New Hampshire, for 1631 and 39 Broadway, the Maddie's development. I won't take up too much of your time. I just wanted to identify, at our last meeting, we had brought in a redlined proposed plan that we had drafted based on our second DPRC meeting with all the town departments. And that plan looked very similar to this. This is the filed revision redline plan with, from Marchand Associates. And the main purpose of this plan and the request, as you're aware, is to try to avoid an easement over the property line for the access drive between the two buildings. And that was accomplished. And there was 4 or 5 other requests that were made per DPRC that were also addressed in this red line plan. What we've done since formally is to revise all of our sub-consultants' documents to reflect the moving of that access drive, what that does to this parking area adjacent to the lowest building, and update plantings and all of our formal architectural plans that now depict where that drive would be. So in terms of the changes to the documents, any changes to our submission since our last meeting, there really isn't anything of magnitude. It's really just addressing this area that we had proposed last time on our red line plan. So.
Was the retention tank moved? It originally was in the driveway, wasn't it?
The
Cell tank?
subsurface collection, that's in the same location.
It's in the same location?
Yep, right under the front drive.
And that is of concrete, I take it?
Yeah, I believe so.
What's that?
No, the subsurface retention area is, that's gonna be the HDP Caltex, which we've had all along, yeah.
It would withstand the fire engine?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's,
they're used quite often.
we've had some issues in town with that, so.
Yeah, I know, I recall at one of the DCPI meetings that the fire chief or fire safety person had, concern, and we provided the documentation for that.
And in the end of the civil set are all the details for that system.
Right.
Was there an issue with the width of the sidewalks? Did they increase that? We have a width of the sidewalk issue.
Right now, we have a 3-foot sidewalk from top to bottom.
It'll be 3 feet.
Yeah.
Mr. Durkin, is a 3-foot sidewalk acceptable to the DPW and yourself?
I think what the DPW clarified for me is that the 5-foot requirement is on town property or town right of way.
Okay.
So that is a private requirement that is up to the inspectional services jurisdiction, not DPW. So that's.
I've seen some language, that's why I asked.
Yeah,
Just-
no,
just,
that it's private, it's
Okay. We had talked about the ADHP for that 3-foot sidewalk, a waiver.
So,
Well, the width is, that's, the minimum, I think, is 3 feet, so 3 feet is acceptable for the width,
For handicap?
yeah.
and we, at our DPRC meeting with the building inspector, he mentioned that's under his purview, and when at times of reviewing the documents for permit would be reviewing accessibility for the site, for both buildings.
And the width of that egress right now is,
It meets that width
which
requirement.
is,
3 feet.
no, the full width going across, the driveway itself. How many
It's
feet?
24 feet per
24
town
feet?
standards, yeah, with a 3-foot sidewalk.
Okay. And there's no parking on that, correct?
No.
And that will be posted, no parking?
It's a 2-way street, so, yep.
Okay. Board members have any other questions?
Did Steve want to?
At this time, I'm sorry, go ahead, Larry.
there's just a few things in the engineer's report that I could
If you would hold on for one
tell
second.
you at the appropriate time.
We have a peer review consultant with us this evening, Mr. Bowley.
Steve Goulet, Touch Tech. We haven't been scoped with any further review, so we haven't reviewed these revised sets. So I think I'm going to hold comment at this time.
Okay. Mr. Durkin.
Hello, I've been in some contact with the engineer. I don't see Paul here. Is he here tonight?
No, Paul wasn't available tonight.
Okay. I think my comments were generally not major. I think it's a suggestion to add a note: the contractor should comply with the EPA general construction permit and stormwater permit and maintain erosion control measures. Another issue is it was a comment given by DPW engineering previously was to not to connect the sewer to connect it to the main before the manhole, but on commercial properties, it's better to connect the sewer to the manhole. For instance, where the grease trap comes out of, that in case that ever needs to be cleaned, it's much better for that to come to the manhole. So I think that's gonna help you, knock on wood. That's not an issue for you guys.
Right. I believe the latest plans, we changed that to your recommendation.
Excellent. So I think you have provided some comment to some of the last statutory comments. I think I added note, please provide blasting precondition survey notes in case blasting is needed. No one wants to blast, but I think if you do, it's good to have those notes on there. We'll get to the, the stormwater permit will be forthcoming. One of my questions is I asked the board, what's the status of the hillside protection permit? I've seen an application, but I'm still fairly new, and I'm not sure how the hillside protection permit is handled. I know it's by the planning board, and so that's a question for myself. In terms of the water system capacity, I still don't have I've been trying to schedule a meeting with CDM to give me a price for that. I think there should be flow tests in there, so I think if you're working with your fire suppression engineer, we could, you can, I think it's tricky this time of year. You gotta have a warm day, probably easily above 40 degrees, but that's also gonna help for the engineering analysis. It's not clear to me on the plans, but I think the proposed water main, is the plan to connect it through to the Collins Avenue, Essex Landing property? If it is, I think that would provide some looping. I'm not sure if the main was stubbed at the northern limit of Maddie's property. But if it is, then maybe it's not clear for me on the plans if that's the intention.
Eventually, we would connect into the Essex Landing project, but at this time, the main at Essex Landing doesn't come to the property line.
It doesn't.
Oh, it does come in? Okay. All right, so I apologize. Mike Touchette just made me aware that it stops at the property line, so.
Sir, would you be kind enough to come up to the podium when you speak so that we can record this?
Yeah, I was not aware that the water main in Essex Landing came all the way to the property line. I thought it was still up in the Essex Landing, but the intention has always been that eventually we would connect to that when this project was built.
Okay.
So that's.
That can be reflected on the plan.
Well, we stop it there, so I mean, it's just a matter of locating the actual exact location, I guess. But that's that's not a problem.
Okay.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So right now we have a stub shown at the property line with a clean out hydrant basically at the end. So we just don't show the main on the Essex Landing side of the plan.
Okay. If it's not shown now, I'm gonna want to give them comfortability permit. So.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
It's easy if you just add, if there's gonna be a revision to the plan, it's just.
Yeah, it's just a matter of.
I think it's good to say the intention is connected. It's always in the interest of everyone that, those are both big units. It's just, if in the worst case, it's best to have water from both sides.
Oh yeah, that was always the intent, and we plan on doing it.
So I think, it said provide detail connecting this pipeline, either detail or no.
Okay.
It can say future.
Yeah, it's not a problem. Not a problem.
And the sewer capacity assessment, I forwarded that was part of my attachment. So if that can be reviewed, and if you guys accept it, typically.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, the Essex Landing project went through that whole assessment as well, water and sewer with.
Yep.
The town consultants. So we've done it before. If we've got to go through it again, so
yeah, I think this is, trying to protect everyone here.
Yep.
And I think.
But I think your consultants are pretty aware of the capacity of the system in this area. So it really will be just a matter of kind of going back through the notes.
The fee's not a lot, but
right.
But I think I can't recall. I don't have the attachment with me. But what typically happens is the applicant would give the treasurer a check for that amount, and then I would get the consultant under contract to do the assessment.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's understood.
So pretty straightforward. The DPW says they're still developing comments. I met with them on the project a couple of times, and I was trying to catch them up on what's outstanding. And from my standpoint, it's not that much. you know, so I don't know what type of comments those will be coming. So the one thing is there were some comments that the DPW are dated February 2nd of 2023, I'm sorry, February 24th. I don't know if I don't have a record of an applicant response to that.
That's from DPW?
Yes. It's an attachment. I can send it separately to Paul or to you. It's not a lot of issues, but I don't have record of a response. It was kind of in limbo when Todd Baldwin, former engineer, was working part-time, and I think I'm just trying to close the loop.
Okay. Yeah, I'd have to look through my notes to see whether we did respond to that or not. I thought we responded to everything that came to us, to be honest, but.
I'm not sure. I gotta check with the planning director to see if it was transmitted. I found it.
And I can
You
speak to that.
did respond and it was transmitted several times to Todd and to you as well, so I can document that.
Okay.
You're fine with it.
All right, yeah, I thought we kind of, as you say, closed the
I'll
loop.
share it again. I
So-
just need to see it from somewhere.
Okay.
It's not an impediment. It's not a roadblock. It's just a few
Sure.
comments.
Yeah, no matter, we'll take care of that.
It's in the file sharing.
Okay.
There's a link that's been sent several times.
Yeah, it was almost a year ago, so.
Yeah.
I'm trying to rack my brain on that one.
Readily accessible.
Yeah.
Mr. Wall?
Yes, excuse me. Actually, it's my first night back after many, many years away. Both buildings have frontage on 99?
Technically, yes.
Yeah.
No, not technically, do they?
Well, one of them is 100 feet back from 99, but one of them is on 99.
But the one that's 100 feet back, does it have frontage, the lot itself,
Yeah,
on 99?
it's all the same lot, but yes, the building faces 99.
So both buildings are in this one lot.
Yes.
Why are you looping the water through the Essex Landing and not through 99?
We are connecting to 99 as well.
Huh?
We are connecting to 99 as well.
No, but you're looping it over through Essex Landing too, right?
Yeah, it's good engineering, and Larry should comment on that, but it's good practice to run, water mains through.
They're tying off 99 for the main feed to Maddie's place, but they're running the water up to the upper building, and this is at the property terminus. They're gonna, what we talked about is they're gonna
Right.
connect it to loop it through to Essex Landing
So that'll
in this area.
That'll improve flows on both the Essex Landing and our site, flows and pressures.
Have the fire department, have they signed off on it?
The fire department's been involved with it right along the way.
Have they signed off on it?
So we would do flow tests when we have our fire protection systems for the buildings designed. And we would have flow tests because if we don't meet the flow, then we would need a fire pump. We feel like we'll meet the flow for independent domestic and fire protection services for both buildings, but that's part of the permitting review to get our building permit, so we would know that at that time.
The elevation between Essex Landing and this one, you're gonna get a good flow as far as runoff is concerned. In other words, you're not gonna have one building taking the runoff from another lot, are you?
No. No, we're not allowed to do that. Essex Landing handles its runoff, and this site handles its runoff.
Yeah, there's a comprehensive stormwater design for Essex Landing.
And just to catch me up on it, I mean, since the building on overlay on a business district up on Route 1, you're going to have what for retail, or what businesses are you going to put in?
Well,
Just to catch me up, please, quickly.
So this is grandfathered into the prior zoning. So the commercial isn't, wasn't.
The overlay,
Yes, the building,
overlay was
highway sustainable, the
that was put in
BHS.
2015, I think.
Correct. So the percentage of commercial isn't dictated in that zoning, it is now. But either way, we meet it. There's a proposed restaurant. The entire first floor of this lower building is proposed commercial restaurant space.
And on the other one?
The other one is strictly residential, the one in the back.
Yeah.
The one up on the top of the hill with some sub-grade parking.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Mr. Durkin?
One, I'm just unsure of the status of the hillside protection, that's a question, and I still, I saw emails on distribution of red line plans for the project, I still don't have them. So I'm not sure if they were brought to engineering or DPW.
You don't have, what, say that again?
It might have been seven, I'm trying to, there was one project where
Those
there
are
were.
plans you brought, didn't you bring them?
Last Friday.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know where they were delivered to, I don't have them, but,
That you
To
don't
the
have the new,
DPW.
you don't have the new plans for 1639?
no.
So there was electronically sent, I sent them electronically as well. You sent them, I believe. Chris hand-delivered them to the DPW and then followed that up. I followed that up with an email to you and Brendan to tell you that you both had your own set of plans, so we didn't have to wait for you to meet. So I'm confused why you don't have them.
I don't know, physically I don't have them.
Have you been to the office?
Yes.
Where did you leave them, Chris?
At the window on the second floor.
And you stated that in your email.
Okay.
Did
I'll
you
look-
get the
I'll-
email?
I did, I got all the emails. I was looking for the plans today and asked them if Chris had dropped anything off. I'll find the plans tomorrow.
Mr. Chair, if I may, point of information through you to the board regarding this testimony and the issues at hand. What we've done in the draft decision, I know it's a little premature mentioning that, but what I tried to do in preparing the draft decision for your consideration is put a bunch of standard conditions in that accounted for all the subsequent review that would be needed before issuance of a building permit, before sign-off by engineering and DPW, because we were finding that it was lengthy in terms of getting the review and feedback back, and our process to render a decision for the applicant in a timely way wasn't being met. So all of these procedures and processes and reviews and approvals are contained in the standard conditions we now include in the draft decisions. And that's so all the things Larry's talking about get addressed before issuance of the building permit,
Thank you. As well as any that we want to add, correct?
as well as it's pleasure of the board.
Thank you. I had a quick question too, Steve. You haven't reviewed the new plans?
No, I reached out to Chris and he had stated that at this time, I guess the board was all set with the review, so.
The issue there is we never got additional peer review funds for them to do a subsequent review. They tapped out on the amount that was provided. So we were not able to go beyond
Oh.
that initial review.
Okay. In the future,
That
if
is
that
not-
happens, just let us know, because then that typically what we would do is we just.
I did, you actually authorized an additional 5,000 request to the applicant, and I forwarded the request. And then there were revisions of plans in the second DPRC, and we didn't get the funds to get a final
Okay, I wasn't aware. I
letter
didn't
from the peer
realize
review
that.
consultant.
I
So,
did not realize that, so.
To add a little detail there, and I think Mr. O'Reilly may speak to this a little bit, but when we went back to the DPRC a second time and reviewed this really thoroughly, we had done that round and had been through a variety of meetings. There was a few real big issues that we had to address, and the rest were rather minor in terms of snow removal and some other things, but really, this is the major change from a peer review standpoint, is really a reduction of spaces right along this building and literally taking everything that was off the site and sliding it over. So there was what seemed to be some comfort with the fact that there isn't really any more relevant new design work per se. It's just we were able to make the original design now fit within the site.
yeah, if I may add to that, we remember at the second DPRC, when we were presented with this, the the town manager had asked for the peer review
Excuse me.
consultant.
Mr. Riley, this was asked of at the second DPRC.
Correct.
This wasn't available at that time.
No,
Okay, just clarification.
no. So the town manager asked for a peer review of potential options on the ramp. And they came back with, in effect, what we were looking for. So at that point, we didn't get the peer review options or recommendations that the town manager had asked for.
The peer
Let me
review
ask
was,
you- Excuse me, let me ask you one question, Mr. Riley. Isn't that peer review the option that the board has for a peer review report on any project of this
It-
caliber?
If you want to instruct the applicant that you
I'm just
need
asking
a
the question.
final, yes.
Yeah, okay.
but just to speak to that, what Mr. Riley's mentioning is the comment regarding a necessity for peer review was, at the time, we didn't understand it was feasible to be able to do this, which was on me. I
remember
brought that
that
up
meeting
a
saying
few
it wasn't
times.
feasible. Go
I
ahead.
didn't feel like we had enough room to do it, and Marshonna pulled a rabbit out of the hat, and we were able to get it to work. But that was the directive of I believe, Mr. Crabtree and Mr. Riley, was if you guys don't feel like you can get it to work, we'd like a second opinion by our peer reviewer to confirm or deny. And
But it did change the original scope of layout. You moved parking spaces, you moved,
we
make it happen.
reduced parking spaces,
So-
but generally speaking, this drive remained the same. It's just slid over 15 feet, you know, and
it was a change, nevertheless.
it is a change,
Okay.
but to the board's benefit, rather minor in terms of any added design. There's really no added design features. So,
One more question, John.
Yes, Mr. Long.
Yeah. Have you ever received any approvals on this from the planning board at all?
this,
When was this first submitted?
when was the project submitted for planning board?
Yeah.
Over a year ago?
So, a short time ago, you said this was submitted before changes were made and it wasn't subject to certain changes.
There haven't been any approvals, so there haven't been any formal decisions made by the
So
planning
it's
board.
still a work in progress.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
There's been multiple DPRC meetings and multiple reports from engineering and planning, and then many meetings with the planning board.
So, Mr. Riley, you had mentioned for the site plan, for the hillside protection, that you were requesting additional trees or something. What was the resolution you were thinking for the hillside protection?
Well, that gets into the draft decision, and what I'm recommending is typically the case here where there has been an impact. You can't restore the situation to the original condition, so you have to remediate it or mitigate it. And to allow the project and the applicant to move forward, what I is suggesting to the board, to members of the board and to the applicant is, give us a retaining wall that mimics what was there before some of the work was done on the slope. And do that on the retaining walls on the north and east side, and then maybe some additional plantings, which is to their benefit, their suggestion would help as well. So that would be what I would call a recommendation on remediation. Can't restore whatever was there that is gone, but there is a practical alternative or option that the board can approve that restores it to a similar condition.
And these walls will be engineered, stamped by an engineer?
They would all have to
Structural
be
engineer?
engineered, structurally engineered.
So, if I'm correct, this was brought up at the last meeting as well.
It's been brought up since the pre-application meeting.
But yet
Here.
tonight, we have a set of drawings that show a different
do.
type of wall.
You do. It's
So-
in the architectural
That's
drawings.
correct.
And is it consistent with what I'm recommending? It's similar. So it's a pleasure to the board whether you feel like that's adequate to approve the Hillside Protection Act application. That is a concurrent application before you. You can deal with it separately. I'm recommending you deal with it all in one approval through the draft decision, because it looks like they've achieved the spirit of the intent.
So the one that I'm looking at, to the architect, looks very similar to what's at Essex Lane. No?
The
The one that you have drawn here?
the engineering
The one-
drawings or the architectural drawings?
On the architectural, I believe.
So the architectural drawings here show a face to the
So
walls.
then I'm out of line. It's on your engineering drawings.
Mr. Chair and Board, the engineering drawings are just going to show the structural material. They're not really going to show the finish. But I do believe they have noted it on the drawings where if it's possible to leave a rock face there at the time of blasting, that would please the board, it would please us. Any structural walls, we have an ability to face them however we'd like. So, but
So
that's
there is going to be blasting at this site then?
likely.
Likely?
Likely. I mean, as minimal as possible, but there has to be some earth removal.
So you could drill that hill and then face it?
There's a number of ways.
Yep.
And we would try, per the board's recommendation, to leave that as natural looking as possible and to not have to structurally, to minimize the amount of structural retaining walls as possible, but we know that there's going to be a need for some along the drive and elsewhere. So that's why on the architectural plans that are submitted for approval, it shows a wall that looks like it's stone on the face.
Any other questions from the board? I guess this would be to you, Mr. McEwen. I did review some of these draft decisions, some of the conditions, and I was quite upset that you come back and you answered the conditions that the board is placing on you.
I
Which
did
is-
informally.
Okay.
There was an internal email that was questioning things for our team that wasn't intended for the board. So we're happy to hear any of the conditions the board has and to consider all of them.
If I may, Mr. Chair, at this time, it's the pleasure of the board, we can go through the conditions, not every one at length. That would take a long time, but
For the record, Mr. Riley, I believe we should.
read the entire,
Well, you would know better. Some of them was just standard conditions.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I would like to hear from Steve Bully if he has any conditions that he'd like to recommend to us as well, if we may.
Not at this time. I wasn't really prepared to have conditions, but that is something that we could generate for the board. If you could just forward me that document if possible, we can take that one.
I mean, Mr. Riley, in his behalf, he's covered quite a bit of it. And I thank him for that effort. I just, like I say, how I got a hold of that, I don't know, but it was forwarded to me. And
I didn't see it. Now I want to know what it said.
I don't have a copy, unfortunately. But
a
Do you-
copy of,
do you have a copy of the pushback, as I will call it? From Maddie's on the, some of the
do it,
answers?
and what we could do is, what I suggest we do, by the board, but maybe, because the standard conditions are the same in every decision, we don't really need to cover those unless the applicant would like us to do that for the better of the process, but if you want me to read the entire decision from start to finish.
You don't have to
we
read
can
the
do that.
entire, you have pointed out some direct requests that are not subject to every site. They do particularly fit this site. And the ones I'm referring to were the ones that were answered back by Mr. McEwen.
Okay, so, well, at this time,
Because the other ones seem to be acceptable. These here are not. for some reason, so.
Yeah, if they haven't
And-
commented, I'm
and-
assuming they're
And,
acceptable.
and to reiterate, Mr. Chair, that wasn't formally for the board, so we did not make a decision on that, nor is that our current standing on the conditions.
Well,
So-
someone wrote it and the cat's out of the bag.
Yes, but it
So-
wasn't intended for the board, it was an internal email.
Okay.
So, in no way is it us refusing to address the conditions. So we're fully on board with the condition, the draft decision that's provided, and happy to take it from there.
Well, the
Just-
draft
just-
is very vague,
So everyone understands, it's in print, the cat's out of the bag.
It was
We're trying to rectify it.
Yeah, it was an email,
Yep.
but it's in no way a formal decision. So what I'm saying is, us as a team and the project are more than happy with Mr. Riley's recommendations.
I think what he's trying to say is if that was what, if that's what you guys were feeling, is that going to be the action?
Well, that's what
you
I'm
know?
upset about, so.
Mr. Chairman, transmission of that internal email to town planner was my fault, because I felt that providing.
But they weren't your answers, Counsel, were they?
No, they weren't.
Okay.
It's fine.
So that's what I'm getting at.
Just trying to see if we could smooth that over before we got to this meeting.
Yeah.
Again, we're retracting some of those positions.
No, it's understood. But as I say,
That was my responsibility.
the cat's out of the bag. If Mr. Riley would care to read those, so that
Yeah, I
everyone
think that
here
would
is.
be beneficial, because this is normal that the applicant would respond, and then we talk about it in a
So-
public hearing, and generally speaking, the board is the permitting authority, so whatever the decision is and the conditions,
Yep.
it's the board's determination, but
As I said, I think you did a great job preparing it.
courtesy of the applicant, we want to talk about these things to see if there's some reason why the board can show some flexibility.
Mhm.
That's all normal. And thank you, Attorney Magna. I'll just start with, sort of going through the draft decision. It's structured with our standard conditions that talk a lot about all the things that need to have to happen. Meeting all the local, state, and building code regulations prior to submitting an application for a building permit. All standard boilerplate stuff. And we include it in every decision that you consider. So every applicant has seen the same thing. So moving down to number 8 on this list, the original, we have to go back and forth a little bit here, but
Let's understand the conditions, Mr. Riley. Page 4.
yeah, on page 4 of the draft decision, number 8 is standard conditions. Snow may not be plowed into or stored into parking spaces. In the event that on-site snow storage areas prove insufficient, the applicant or owner shall be responsible for off-site disposal of excess snow in accordance with any all applicable laws and regulations. And then, if I may, on the applicant's part, it says snow storage may not reduce the parking count. It needs to be trucked off-site. So that's not really a concern. It sounds like they're agreeing, correct?
Sure.
Okay. Moving down to number 17.
I'm sorry. Mr.
Can I just make a comment on standard condition number 6? I think some language I would suggest be added is all stormwater management shall be in accordance, after handbook, add town stormwater bylaw, and then EPA construction general permit.
You're asking him to change the language in number 6.
He's asking to add to it?
Yeah,
Stormwater.
I want to include the town stormwater bylaw, which will force the stormwater permit, and then also, this is overnight disturbance, so it includes the EPA construction general permit, which concerns a lot of erosion control during construction.
You have no problem with that?
No, I believe it's covered elsewhere in the decision, but there's no problem with redundancy.
Okay. So you were referring to,
So, moving on to the next condition. that we should probably discuss is during construction, number 17, the town shall authorize peer review construction oversight to ensure compliance with the approved plans of record and this decision at the applicant's expense. So this is now a standard planning board procedure that the board has adopted, and we apply it to every applicant. We applied it to 150 Salem Turnpike. We applied it to all of your recent approvals in the past 2 years. So, you know, the intent obviously is just to make sure the construction process moves quickly and accurately. That's to the benefit of everyone. So that's the intent. Anything on that?
So
Moving on to
are they
the-
in agreement?
Yes, absolutely.
Moving on to number 24, which is prior to the issuance of an occupancy permit. A final punch list inspection with the town to ensure compliance with the approved plans and conditions shall be scheduled by the applicant or signs at least 30 days before any submission for an application for certificates of occupancy. The intent here is just to make sure that we're all on the same page and the applicant isn't caught scrambling, trying to satisfy things 2 or 3 days before they need their certificate of occupancy. So it's really, the benefit goes both ways. It's just coordination in a timely way to make sure everybody's on the same page and there are no delays.
And
all it is.
that's standard construction practice for us as well.
Okay.
There'd be field reports filed just before C of A that show that the building is
And
substantially.
it probably would be just field reports, but, you know, just, you know, advance notice, let's make sure everything is where it should be, and we also required this of every other project that we've approved recently, so. Moving on,
One question, Chris. So in some towns on that, they require affidavits from the architect and from the structural engineer. Their engineers to make periodic reviews, and at the end of the job, they get signed off.
This is a controlled construction project, so we would have an affidavit prior to construction for a permit issuance, and then we would have an affidavit at the end of construction as well.
It's just-
so we have a requirement for as-bills.
They have to
Several.
come back to the planning board with
And
the
they would
as-bills
need to be-
before the
Yeah.
occupancy permit,
Right.
which wasn't always followed in the past.
And anything
And that
that
does
needs a
happen.
structural review, like the retaining wall, would also
We need to sign off
need
from
the
there.
same thing. So that's
So
all,
do you need to add
Someone other
language
than
to
the
that?
town is gonna have to accept that.
that's all covered.
Okay.
Mr. Durkin?
And on, just on number 29, no occupancy permit shall be issued. I think that should, you know, abide the building inspector and engineering / DPW. You know, what's not under the building inspector is under DPW. I know when a lot of the boilerplate language, you know, we want to see the as-built as well and approve them. It's not just the inspectional services.
No, it's planning board, they have to bring it, so should you add that language, planning board, they have to
You
bring
could bring
the
it to the
as-bills
planning
back
board.
to the planning board.
Which then
That's-
would refer to
Wanna know from
DPW
their
from the
experts.
planning board.
Right,
Is everything,
right. They would be in conjunction with that, but they definitely have to come, that's the way the rules and regs are, that they have to come to provide the as-bills to the planning
for
board
the first
before-
certificate of occupancy?
For occupancy. Mhm.
That's in the zoning, so it's covered by the zoning.
And that's one of the general conditions.
But we should outline it here too, just so we don't
Yeah,
have
if you
to.
want to add that, you can certainly do that.
You know, and my next comment is I see.
Can I backtrack here a little bit,
Yes.
because you jumped over 26.
Sorry.
All right, so 26 reads, the parking row on the north side of the lower level adjacent to the ramp shall be revised to assess parking spaces as practical to allow for parallel parking on the opposite side of the drive aisle. All indicated compact spaces shall be numbered 8 by 16. They meant the second part of that, I can verify that. Can I just, Mr. Chair, approach the plans?
Sure.
Indicate what I'm talking about? So, you know, obviously, there's a lot of appreciation for cooperation of the applicant in moving everything out of the easement and onto the site. That was a town request, and we really appreciate that. But here, I'm noticing kind of a no man's land in here. And what's going to happen, and I've seen it happen, you know, over my entire 30-year career, people are gonna park here, whether you have signs that say no parking or not. And there looks like there's room to recess these spaces here, maybe 5 or 6 feet. This is just grass, a grass strip here?
There's the retaining wall that's in the house.
So this is the retaining wall right here, correct?
Yes.
This black stripe. And in here, the plans show a grass strip. So what I was talking about is, if it's possible, recess all of these right up to the retaining wall, and that would allow more room in here for these cars to back out into the drive aisle and account for the reality that people are gonna park along this strip, but no matter what you do. So that's what I was talking about.
So
It's
I-
something we can review in the field, but if the applicant doesn't have a major objection to that,
While you're on the parking situation, but bring it up now, question that I have. Separation between restaurant and residents. Are these gonna be assigned parking spaces for the residents, or
They typically are numbered.
typically
They're typically numbered.
so will the restaurant have restaurant parking, residential parking? How are we gonna decipher?
Yeah, so the way that it's generally handled is any parking space assigned to a tenant would have a number that would coincide with their unit number so that they don't mix up where they're supposed to be.
And the likelihood would be that we would decide where the parking, which we haven't as of yet, but decide where the parking is most ideal for the residential tenants of this building. There's 20 spaces of the lower lot, and those would be numbered 1 through 20. All of the parking spaces for the upper building that are required for those apartments are on the upper part of the site.
Yeah, we'd only be down with the
Yeah,
restaurants.
yeah. And then the remainder of the spaces would be left untapped. First come, first served. To speak to Mr. Riley's suggestion, it's an encouraging suggestion. However, we've reviewed with Marshana, in order to get parallel spaces in this area, we need 8 feet of additional space, plus the curbing. The depth of the space, the parallel space is 8 feet. This is a 2-way drive, which is required for fire truck access and delivery truck access to the back of the restaurant, as well as egress through the site. And we unfortunately don't have the 8 feet. So although it appears as though we may have a little bit of space here, we just don't have enough space to include for further parking, parallel parking.
Mr. Chair, may I respond? Would there be any harm in recessing the parking spaces up to the retaining wall?
What you're not seeing is there's a slope to the retaining wall, and that's what there is a little bit of that space for, but we can move those spaces. However, in the vein of the zoning, we try to provide as much green space, as much area for planting as possible, and that's a nice planting bed between that parking space and the access aisle that goes up the hill. So if it pleases the board to reduce the green space and the plantings, the parking can be moved, but we try to do our best to design the site in the vein of the zoning.
If I could just jump in too, I think, it does look like there's a possibility of moving a few here, but what ends up happening, because there's so much going on with this wall here, we'd end up losing a couple of spots on the end of that aisle to make room for that if we pushed everything back.
So if you left these
And then-
spaces on the ends, where they are, and then inside of that,
Well, then you wouldn't really have a consistent aisle though, so it would kind of be all over the place. We try to keep it straight.
okay, it's a pleasure to the board.
So, and really, these parallel spots, they're typically 8 by 23. So you're really only looking at a couple of spots that you could fit in here, maybe 3. So by the time you move this all back, you lose a couple of spots on the end because you're getting into the wall here. You're pretty much a trade-off. So that's why we haven't done it.
Yeah, yes, there was
Just wanted to.
jump in and do, because we have the fire lane.
Idea, if you want to
Continue on? You done?
leave it, or strike it, or revise it, or...
No, I'm sure if you put it on a CAD, you could come up with another drawing, something that may work. I mean, you're gonna convex it, I understand what he's saying, but if you just move them all systematically, it would open up that drive on the end.
What, What are you trying to do, get more parking, but parallel?
People are gonna park
Yeah.
on that curb next to the building anyway.
To address that, Mr. Riley, so that's a 24-foot dual access drive aisle there. We could easily put stripe it, no parking.
And people will still park.
Well, and actually, more appropriately, it's likely a fire lane because the truck has to get through there. So there's ways of handling it, but they would be leaving a car in a drive aisle, which is not safe or appropriate.
Can't say it doesn't happen.
I didn't, but we would really hope it doesn't because it's needed for fire trucks and delivery.
Okay, so it sounds to me like strict conformance, that is not gonna happen, so we can leave it in there and
Yeah,
they don't
it's a
mind.
condition.
And,
To
it
speak
won't change anything.
to speak to that, Mr. Touchette, just let me know at the adjacent property, there is a fire lane that's demarked, and it is enforced by the town, and it's ticketed.
So only because you brought it up, I was up there the other day, over the holiday, and one whole side of that street was parking. It's only a 24-foot street, not one ticket.
No, it's hard amount building.
Talking coming up the hill, one side was filled with cars, Mike. And this is what we don't want to happen here, and that's why I asked the question. I didn't want to bring it up because it's another property,
Yeah,
but,
but around the buildings, we painted fire lanes now because people were parking there.
yeah,
And of all three buildings.
This was
and the
only-
town enforces the parking.
this
so
was
people
only
don't
3
park
days
anymore.
ago. So, but they were there. It was early, I had to pick someone up, and it happens, so.
We can leave it and then probably nothing will happen. You know, is there an opportunity to do that to allow for a better condition? And if you can't do it, if they've explained they can't do it, nobody's going to.
I'd like to see it on a maybe an SK drawing. That you make the attempt to see what it does look like.
We have.
Hmm?
We have. So
I said the board would like to see it, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, so we have made that attempt.
Okay.
This is number 20 iteration of trying to get this road to work.
Yep,
And that was, we looked at parallel spaces on both sides, and this was the highest parking count that we could generate without added compact spaces and all that business, and we're only one parking space over the count, but we felt that this would be an acceptable solution because we've met the count.
you would provide what you did. You would provide to the board some of those drawings where you made that attempt.
We can put together a sketch, but as I mentioned when I was up there,
Yep.
when we slide the whole aisle over, the bulk of the spots in the middle, yeah, that they can be moved over. What ends up happening because of the wall and the elevation change of that access drive, you
Mhm.
end up losing the spots on the end. So you gain a couple on the aisle, but you lose a couple on the, you lose a couple on the opposite side of that drive. So it's kind of trade-off on the number of parking spaces.
You would not lose them on the end if you left them where they are. And
It's just-
again, we're circling the train here. Let's just, if it's a pleasure of the board, you want to keep the condition in there, it's up to you.
It's fine for them. Mr. Durkin?
Just reviewing this document here tonight, on the findings of the planning board, item number 2 says the adequacy of methods of disposal of sewage and refuse and drainage surface water. I think, at least on the sewer side, that's to be determined. Because I haven't, the consultant hasn't moved forward on that. So I don't know if that's a statement that the board wants to agree with. And then in the spirit of that, there may be a 9th that says adequacy of the water system. And that will be determined, so.
Where are you?
Page 3, findings of the board, item number 2. It's marked as yes. It's saying the board has found adequacy of the method of disposal of sewage in refuse and the drain of surface and water. The disposal of the That's to be determined by the town's wastewater consultant. So
Mr. Chair, if I may,
So,
procedurally, you've already approved the findings. And the draft decision contains language for that subsequent review. Just
At our
for
last
information.
meeting.
do you understand what he's saying?
I do.
Okay. So that is a condition?
Yes. Okay, if I can move on to,
So just so you understand, Larry, there is no permit unless these conditions are made. If these conditions are not made, it's an automatic shutdown of the job. So this is something that lets your designer, your builder, make them aware of everything that the board and the town wants. So they try to follow it as closely as possible. Mr. Riley?
so, number 27. All retaining walls shall be surfaced with a material that resembles natural stone face similar to the hillside slope that remains on the north and west sides of the existing site. We talked about this. I think they've more or less met that standard. They're talking here about all retaining wall surface with material that resembles natural stone, perhaps with a material, and in parentheses here, or pattern that resembles natural stone. I'd recommend that would be okay. They're talking about how it would allow them to do a form liner. It would allow for easier, more maintainable construction and maintenance. So that sounds okay to me.
Do you need to have language about, it has to be approved by stamped by an engineer? 'Cause we've
No,
had
that has to
issue in
happen
the
under the
past.
code because of any retaining wall that goes over
5
4
feet.
feet has to be structurally
We run into that issue.
reviewed, yeah. Is that?
Yes, that's correct, yep. And the engineered drawings have to be submitted to the town.
Okay, moving to number 30, no occupancy permit shall be issued for the development until completion of all development infrastructure, including all site driveways, access ways, parking areas, drainage facilities, and utilities. And this speaks to the protection of some of the concerns the town engineer has, but they are saying that they will seek occupancy for the first building well ahead of site work for the second building. So that is a practical matter.
And to speak to that, to add some detail, Mr. Chair and Board, it's really the sidewalks and curbing and some things that may not be finished when the first building is seeking an occupancy permit. So that portion of the site may be safe and planted and paved and have all its egress met. But the concern there was the word all site infrastructure. Because if it pertains to the second building, and they haven't yet built it, or it's in construction, perhaps those sidewalks aren't finished at that time.
So what about the blasting?
I'm talking. This is infrastructure related to driveways, egress, walkways, and curbing.
We just said, what if the second building isn't up at that time?
Yeah, fully constructed. There won't be a there won't be certificate of occupancy on both buildings at the same time concurrently. It's
So we could say no occupancy for each building.
right, or the infrastructure associated with each building would be finished at the time. That's
Yeah, that would be better. Is that acceptable?
That's acceptable. Board, is that acceptable to the board? Okay.
And the final one is, this approval is subject to compliance with the items blank in the peer review letter by Tetra Tech dated. So this speaks to that, any final comments they may have. And says Tetra Tech items not defined. So what you could do is just say, any remaining issues identified by Tetra Tech in a final letter to be paid for by the applicant shall be resolved before the issuance of the building permit. Does that sound right? Is that
That
acceptable?
language a little better.
Okay.
To our peer review. Does that help you, Steve, with
So we'll get a scope.
Yeah, we have a final set of plans and we'll finalize the recent letter we have.
And the only other, I should mention to the chair, to the board, Mr. Chair, is I did add one and sent it to the applicant's attorney that the project shall conform with the inclusionary bylaw requirements for the affordable housing. We have that in every residential project as well. So that's all I have, unless there's other specific conditions you want me to.
That's a requirement of the building permit as well. We have to identify how many.
I don't want to beat a dead horse, but 29, can you add building inspector and planning board? Just add the language and planning board?
Yeah.
Because there has been some confusion in the past where the planning board has signed off on that and it didn't come
On
back
the
before the
as-bills?
yeah, without it coming back to the planning board.
Got it.
Thank you. Did you read the last? Do you have any questions at the end of it? Okay, I'm good.
Mr. Long?
With regard to hillside protection, the amount of blasting that's gonna go on, do we have any idea how much that is? And would there be on-site crunching or, what do you call it, processing of the granite itself, if that's what it is? And number two, there's two accesses to this property. One's off of 99 with that building right there.
Mm-hmm.
The one from behind it, the access is coming down from Essex Landing.
That's correct.
Do we have anything in the Essex Landing and the owners of this property have agreed to have open access to that, because that, other than that, you go on town bylaw says you can only have, you have to have no longer than 500 feet of dead-end streets. And without having that other access, you in fact have a dead-end street.
Their pitch to us in the past was it was gonna become a combined driveway,
Yep.
so.
And there is a
Believe
draft
it-
an access easement filed with the planning board for that access.
Is it on file?
It is, yep, the draft easement, yep. It'll be executed upon approval of the project.
And on the blasting part of it?
So as part of the hillside and the master plan submission, there's cut and fill plan that's included at the end of the package. It does not define the amount of blasting because we'd like to limit that as much as possible, but we know where the grade needs to come and go.
What about the processing of the granite itself? Is it going to be on site? And the reason I ask that, because right up where Days Inn is, we had blasting up there, and they brought in a, what do you call it, one of those processors there, and you wouldn't believe the amount of noise that thing generated.
Also dust.
Outside.
Dust, I believe dust control is one of the conditions.
I mean, is that going to be,
We found that's desired to use for subgrade and as much as possible to eliminate additional trucks on 99 and 1. So we'll do that to the best of our ability.
but you're going to do the crunching or the crushing of the on-site. You're going to bring in something. Is you guys develop it right beside you. That noise is not exactly like a whisper.
We have to be as sensitive to our neighbors as possible.
Certain hours and things of that nature.
Correct.
Chris, do we have anything on hours and the conditions?
It's at the
I think
it's
I
at the
saw
front.
that.
On hours of operation, hours of construction are a standard
You
condition.
should probably add them.
Yeah.
Yes,
Start times, quitting times, no holidays,
Yep,
that's
all
there.
that.
No weekend.
please.
Don't get him going, please.
I'm trying to be good.
It's almost over. You know what they say about poking the bear?
If you're the bear, you don't give a damn.
That's true.
Larry, do you
Well,
have
you're the
anything
poker,
to
you
add?
don't give a damn.
Mr. Riley, you have anything you'd like to add?
Not at this time, Mr. Chair.
So
Thank
this
you,
is, this
yeah.
is still open to conditions.
It's an open
Final
public
conditions,
hearing.
the
We
change.
haven't closed the hearing.
Okay, right. This is a public hearing. At any time, at this time, would anyone in the audience like to come up and speak in behalf, for or against? Please state your name. All at once. Hearing none, we'll close that portion of the public hearing.
Mr. Chair, make a motion to close the public hearing?
No,
Not the hearing, just the
Motion.
hearing to the public.
Yeah.
Yeah. We gotta find that,
Public, part of the public
the
hearing.
public part of it. Do I have a second?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This meeting is now closed to the public. Does the board have anything else they'd like to add or say, or at this point?
Wait, yeah, are you planning on voting on this today?
I don't think that we have enough information, to be truthfully honest. And as I said earlier, and however it got out, but we need to rectify some of the conditions.
I thought,
We're waiting for some
We-
stormwater reports.
Mr.
Are you all
Chair.
satisfied? I have to give our peer review consultant some time to review the new drawing.
but that's part of the conditions. We labeled
Yeah,
it.
Mr.
It
Chair,
is
you-
listed as a condition, but I don't think that our peer review got to speak tonight because of the change.
You just closed the public hearing.
Not
so
that, not
you
that,
cannot-
not that end of the public, from the public speaking, is what it closed.
You, okay.
I-
You can't,
Let's see what happens.
I thought we were ready to vote this tonight because we
I
put
move
the
to
conditions
reopen
in
the
there that
public
left
hearing.
it, we made the conditions that
You vote to
left it
reopen
open.
it?
Yes.
Public
Is that
hearing has
the-
been reopened. All,
All right, I'm totally confused right now.
Nah, I should be too.
I thought we put the conditions in here that give us that leeway for the,
But we
peer
added
review.
some conditions, and we need to rectify some conditions, so the language has changed. I also think that the board needs.
but don't we vote it as we stated in the changes? No? Don't?
You could vote it as,
you
Vote to
motion to
change
vote
it.
to approve subject to the conditions and amendments as agreed to the proceedings this evening. That's usually the motion.
Yeah, and then if something happens and they don't change, then
okay. So we'll do
Bob,
it.
no, what?
I won't be voting on subject to conditions. I think it's good to have something right in front of you, the complete plan, when you sign off, that's what it is. And there's no ands, ifs, or buts about it. There's no negotiation or anything that the board doesn't know or doesn't see. I think it's a good thing to have everything done before we go forward and let them go forward. Just my.
I, just for clarification, technically, I don't think on the first meeting you can vote,
Good.
so. No, I'm not, I'm just,
Mr. Long.
no, there's no disrespect intended, sir. It's just that he is a new member, this is his first night hearing it. I respect him 100%, trust me. I'll pass it on to the board. What is the wish of the board at this point?
So,
Can I get a motion?
So, let me just, for clarification, Mr. Long, you can't vote on this anyway, but are you asking us as a board member to respect that you would rather go one more meeting till we have it all in writing?
Here tonight, be put down in print, and be, you know, and be provided to you at the moment you're going to sign off on the plan, yeah. That way, there's no ands, ifs, or buts about it. You got it all.
We're not signing off on a plan.
Not now, no, I'm just saying, no.
This is just site plan review and the
There's comments going
hillside
back and
protection
forth here.
permit.
Well, they've been going on for a year.
So what?
So,
I'm a year older too, you know? Look, there's one thing about this, it has a, may I speak freely?
Sure.
Okay. There's one thing about this. That's not the best condition for what you're proposing right now, the way you got it laid out, okay? You got a building on 99, but then, in fact, without anything from the abutter, you have a building, another building behind it, that's on essentially a dead-end street too far removed from the public safety issue here. So I think that needs to be resolved. Do they really in fact have access through Essex, what do you call, Point there? So that's number one. Number two, you got a lot of walls that you're going to be, what is it that you're going to do on site? I mean, I may be old-fashioned, but it's nice to have knowledge of what's gonna go on without having to have calls in the middle of the night, like I've had when they're blowing out some of the engineering specs and stuff like that. That's just my personal opinion. If I'm not voting on it, fine, go ahead, do what you want.
If it pleases the board, I could respond. Thank you, sir. With regard to the conditions, you know, Mr. Riley's gone to a lot of trouble to rally everyone's desires, and it seems like at this point we seem to all be on the same page. You know, so we're looking to appease the board, meet your desires, and to do this project the right way. To the comment about blasting, many of these sites are designed flat with, you know, and there would be a giant shear wall in the back. And what we've learned from other developments in town is it's much more respectful of hillside, the town, and the site to terrace the buildings so that we can limit those walls as much as possible. We do have to meet percentages for fire trucks to get to a certain area, so that set the height of this building. And we've been as sensitive as we can to as much earthwork as possible. And there's quite a great difference up in this area, as you can see right now.
Yeah.
So the developer is confident that we can not limit the amount of calls to the town in terms of how we deal with materials on site. You know, we're going to try to do the best that we can. And
So the developer that's developing it is the same developer as the owner of Essex Landing. So he's going to conform to all necessary blasting applications?
Yes, state standards with the fire
Absolutely.
chief. And we minimized it when we did the site next door, excuse me. So, you know, we'll minimize all that, John, to,
Yep.
I don't see a lot of work going on up there with the blasting because the Tennessee gas line and everything, so I think some of it will be splitting and hammering, because once you get near that gas line, now there's all new kinds of rules with the state for the Tennessee gas line. And as far as Mr. Long knows, you know, it's one piece of land. It's like Square One Mall, you have 3 different buildings on that one piece of land. So that's why the buildings are built at 2 different elevations.
But it's excessive
and-
from about 4
Well, in
different
the zoning, it
directions.
says that if you can provide access to your neighbor, you're supposed to. So we provided that as part of, that's out for the fire department and the water loops that the water department wants. So we're gonna loop that water twice down that street to create pressure in that neighborhood. So that's one of the reasons we're providing that easement. And the easement, if the fire truck gets stuck there, he can go out the other way, or if he's at Essex Landing, he has another avenue to get out. So in the zoning,
I don't have a
Yeah.
problem with Essex Landing, I'm just saying, where's the confirmation that you actually have
We-
access, and how are you gonna build it?
I'm the owner of Essex Landing, and Mr. Wong is the owner next door, and we have partnered on this site. So
I understand that.
But we have
I'm just saying,
an
would you put it
agreement
down
that-
in writing?
we did, we provided a town agreement, it will be modified to the plan that's accepted, and it'll be recorded at the registry of deeds before we start any work. That agreement, before any permit or any work is started, once the final plan is referenced on that paper that we provided to the board, it will be recorded at the registry of deeds and provided to the
But you
town.
understand, my point is that once it leaves here, you're not dealing with this board anymore.
I understand, but we will provide that document before we do any work or file for any permits. Once the final plan is approved, we will reference this plan in that paperwork, and it will be signed by myself and the Wong family, and that will be recorded at the registry of deeds, and the copy of that recording will be provided to the town clerk in this board, before anything happens.
So-
Mr. Riley,
so to
if I may,
speak-
I'd like to see that as a condition, Mr. Duchette is providing that no permits will be issued until that agreement is in hand,
And record it, we will record that.
Okay, so prior to the issuance of a,
any permits. That's what he just agreed on.
so
Yep.
standard conditions,
Standard conditions, yep.
okay.
And Mr. Long, to to address your question, what that means in layman's is that road can never be a one-way street. It has to have two ways up, yeah, so.
You
If I
need
sell the
Mr.
property or
Touchette to
we sell the
repeat it.
property, that agreement will always be in place. It will be a condition
And
that Mr. O'Brien
originally-
wanted from a
from
long
the
time.
beginning.
And it will be recorded, as soon as this plan is finalized with the plan number, I promise you that will be recorded ahead of time.
Did you get all that, Chris, or do you need to?
Agreed.
Mr. Duchette, you take care of your own snow plowing at this point?
Yes, we do, and I'll handle the other site.
Okay.
So we have all the equipment to do that, and we also do the Kowloon, and we also will take care of this site.
That was that was addressed in the DPRC comment that, that there would be the same maintenance company.
No permit shall be
Do
issued.
you want to repeat that to
Mr. Durkin?
John? John,
I'm
he
sorry.
wants to make sure he records this correctly, so.
No permits shall be issued until the agreed upon easement is recorded with the registry.
Access and use agreement, that will provide access and utilities.
Access and use agreement to Essex Landing.
Right, will be access and utilities, because we do have the water and the gas coming down that road to make the loop. And there are 2 water stubs there. I've talked to Chuck numerous times about that. He saw them. We're ready just to tie them together.
All I ask is that's, that's on the
Yeah,
state.
I've given former engineers numerous as-built plans, and Chuck asked me again last week to get a copy to you, because no one can find them, but I know when Jim sat on this board, every time I came for an occupancy permit, Peter Rossetti, that was a requirement to get signed off by, there's a sheet. Engineer, DPW, chairman of the planning board, all have to sign off on that sheet. So I know that stuff was provided, but Chuck's saying they can't find it, so I'm working with Mashonda now to get a new copy of all the as-built plans for next door to your office, and that will show up on all that.
And Chuck did tell me it was looped through, and I wasn't
Yeah.
aware of that. And that's-
Yeah, and I talked to Chuck numerous times after you had meetings with him,
Yep.
and I did more work than that. I also looped Dunkin' Donuts up the street, and the DPW director knows that.
He's happy, he's
Yeah.
very happy with the work done there.
It's gonna be, we have good pressure now,
Yeah.
and we're gonna have better pressure. So, 2 of my buildings are on pumps, but we're hoping that these buildings don't need pumps, but if they don't meet the flow test, they will be on pumps.
And just one thing I'd like to add is I would like to give the opportunity, I can give a copy of the conditions, standard conditions to the DPW director. He may have comments. I'm meeting with him tomorrow to discuss this site, and I don't know, I'm just saying he may have a comment on,
He's seen these plans, though, no?
he's seen them.
And he didn't have any comments?
We don't have comments from a lot of departments right now.
Well, the problem that I have with that is that the stuff goes out to them. It's their responsibility to get their comments to us in a timely manner. We can't keep saying we don't have the information back. I mean,
So that's
I will say,
an internal meeting that we need to have. I discussed this with Chris.
and you have those meetings twice a month now with all the departments? And you guys go over all these projects? I know you're trying, It's just, it's frustrating on our end and it's frustrating on the applicants.
I'm just talking about the standard conditions in here.
All right.
I think.
So I would say, this has been going on quite a while. We had two DPRC meetings where that meeting is held with the town manager and all the departments. The plans have been there. You have been very accommodating every time we've requested something, or the planning director or any of the departments has requested it, which I have one question about that. The fire department had concerns about the height of the wall on the restaurant bar, the rooftop bar. Did that get addressed?
That's addressed in the building set when the building's designed for our building permit.
Is that in the newest set? The newest set we have?
So it's not addressed here. It's depicted as such, but it's not
Okay.
dimensioned or anything.
Okay.
The details of that will be provided to the building inspector, and he would approve that at the time. But we
Okay.
know that we have to make it a 5-foot wall
Okay.
with an offset.
And the fire department reviews those drawings.
Yes.
They sign off first.
Actually,
So
yeah.
I'll make sure the chief picks up on that note. I know he asked for a setback on that wall, so nobody could jump over. So he has the 3 sets of plans first, he signs first, and then they go through the other departments. So we'll make sure we pick up a note on that. that the chief, we picked up on that. That's part of the architecturals.
And to speak to your comment, Jeannie, and Larry's comment, the DPW was at both the DPRC meetings, and we did get comments from them at both times. I think Larry's just referencing the standard conditions for the town. So.
Okay, so I feel comfortable, I understand what you're saying, Mr. Long, and I respect your opinion immensely. I think we're at a point, so could we agree that moving forward, since you can't vote on this anyway, that moving forward, we will make sure everything's in front of us?
I got one final question. And I will call it quits.
Remember that 9 o'clock deadline I gave you? We're not even done with the next one. But I'll give you one more, go ahead.
One more. This is all being done on an overlay basis, you know, it's allowing them to do something
Mr.
in a
Long,
business zone.
it's point of information, this is not an overlay zone. This is a straight rezone.
There is no overlay.
Oh, you haven't been to town meeting?
There is no overlay.
I
This
was
is
part of
the
the
underlying zone.
BHSD amendment in 2015. It's not an overlay, it's a straight rezone.
And it's been
The
done by
waterfront
town?
is an overlay,
It
the
was done by-
historic Mills District is an overlay, this is not an overlay.
Okay, so that was done by town meeting.
Yes.
I'm happy to not be there at the time, so.
You were busy last year.
By the way, I didn't even know I was coming tonight until I stopped by the office. So I'm playing catch up here, so accept my apologies on it.
No problem.
But if you come with an overlay,
No.
I got a question for you.
He's gonna be ready from moving forward, you guys can be sure he's gonna be ready.
Don't give me a zoning bylaw book.
Mr. Long, just like the old days, right?
We both had hair.
Now you're going way back.
My dad with his damn
My
cigars.
dad still had hair. He had all his hair. All right, so,
A
close.
motion from the board?
I would-
Before us?
Go
Can you
ahead,
finish
no?
your comment? I'll finish. I'd like to hear the rest of it.
I forget what I was gonna say now. I think you guys know the gist of it. Go ahead, make your motion.
No, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion to approve this site plan review in the hillside protection permit as stated here with all these conditions by Mr. Riley.
As amended.
As amended.
In the
as-
proceedings this evening.
What
Do
is
you
that?
have an open public meeting right now? Public hearing?
No, I already
We opened
closed
We
it.
opened it.
It was a reconsider or reopen?
Well, he said he wanted to open it, but we never took a vote. We never
Okay,
made a
okay, so it
motion.
wasn't, okay. So that would be the motion.
Point of information that the approval was for site plan review and hillside protection, but I believe master plan has.
Oh, master
Yeah.
plan as well, sorry about that. Add master plan. And one more, did we put do we have to state the amount of money that we're looking for peer review funds in the motion as well? We usually do.
We should.
That's an administrative thing. I think you can satisfy the condition once you've approved it.
Okay.
So you can do that separately, I would say.
Okay. We typically, don't we do that here? Is that
You
the
can do
amount?
it anytime, it's pleasure of the board. You can do it now, whatever you like.
Okay, what is the?
I'd say it's a
board feel?
final comment letter, 5,000
The,
was the amount that we that you
No.
approved.
I would say probably 10,000 for this project.
the last time, I think, we asked for the quote and it was submitted and we were happy to pay it, but it was undetermined what the amount was at that time.
Okay, all right, that's fine, I'm fine. Do I have a second?
I'll second Jeannie.
Can I just ask one question, Mr. Bully? Mr. Bully, have we expired from the original amount of money? I know you did traffic study, stormwater, you did quite a bit,
Yes, we're currently at budget, the original budget.
your original budget. So do you feel that 5,000 is
Yeah,
enough?
that's more than enough for a final review.
Okay,
Okay.
go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'll
Bill?
second Ms. Meredith's motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3-0.
Abstain, Mr.
One abstain.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very
Thank
much for your time.
Good night.
We got one more. Smaller parking spaces, are they located in a single location or are they spread throughout?
They're They're
I'm just
grouped-
curious.
they're
7 years of
grouped
that.
in certain locations.
Okay.
The two old two don't go.
There's some
Good.
underneath the building, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay.
people know, they're
I-
not
I-
intermingled.
I had every confidence that you would do it, but I just wanted to make sure. Phil and I just got back from Aruba,
take
so
a
I saw the
temporary-
last meeting on TV,
Mr.
but
Chair,
I
I'll
couldn't
take
see the
a,
plan.
temporary
Yeah.
recess.
Okay,
Temporary
thank you.
recess.
Temporary recess.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Take a 10-minute recess. This is again a public hearing, 7099 Broadway site plan review, master plan. And once again, we have Attorney Mangum representing the client.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, again, for the record, Attorney Richard M. Magnan, 194 Central Street, Saugus, representing the applicant Raising Cane's and the property owner, the Nickley Family Trust. With us this evening, we have Adam Carucci from Raising Cane's. I won't get this one this time. Matt Ashley from Bowler Engineering. I usually make him Matt Bowler from, anyway. Ted Nickley is here, the property owner. We have what, traffic? Also. This is, as you know, has been a continued hearing ongoing. I will report to the board that it was last Tuesday at the Board of Selectmen. We submitted our application we had submitted our application and had a hearing on last Tuesday for the drive-through component of this particular site. The board voted after a hearing and review of plans, unanimous approval of the site plan, the drive-through, subject to approvals by other boards, including this board, obviously, in regards to its jurisdiction. So at this time, pending what were ongoing questions, I'd ask Matt to step up.
Mr. Magum, it's a normal procedure to receive a copy of that.
Yeah, I tried to get a copy today. Jana says 14 days to file it, so it would have been yesterday in the town clerk's office. So I have to get a copy from the town clerk.
You will give one to me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. For the record, Matt Ashley with Bowler Engineering. So just to give a quick recap, like Rich said, we did go to the Board of Selectmen, got approved there. Since then, back in November, I think we were last here, got voted out to go to peer review, which it did, and that came back a couple weeks ago, maybe a little more. We took into account all of Tetra Tech's peer review, responded to that letter and sent the plans back in, which I believe you have in front of you currently. And then they were kind enough to also turn around our response letter this evening and issue that back to us. I'll kind of just go through the highlights of that, if that makes sense with everyone, and if anyone has any questions along the way, we can do that.
For the record, Mr. O'Brien, there were considerable comments in the engineer's report that we should discuss as well.
The previous engineer's report, or is there another one?
Current engineer's report.
Okay. So as far as Tetra Tech's peer review, they didn't have a ton of site-specific stuff, and if you've had a chance to go through it, most of the comments in there, they said were largely in agreement with our responses. There are about 7 comments in there that they wanted a little further discussion on, but I don't think there's anything major. 3 of those were kind of related to one question in particular about the stacking in the drive-through. We brought our traffic engineer here too to discuss that further about typical Raising Cane's stacking. And then there was a couple comments about lighting fixtures in there. In the light levels, I think the bylaw says you can have up to 0.5 lumens at the property line, and that's what we updated the plan to be. And then there was a comment in there about the maximum height of a light pole to be 10 feet within the setback of the property. To be honest, we thought we reduced those down to 10 feet. The plan still says 10. We can absolutely bring that down to 10 or get it out of the setback line. That we don't see that as being an issue here. But we can get to the bottom of why the plan still said above 10 feet. As far as stormwater comments go, there weren't a ton of stormwater comments left. There was one question just about the detention system on site. I think we just need to clarify one item with them as it pertains to exactly how the water is going to get out of the detention system, and we can certainly get through that with Tetra Tech outside of this, through the town though, obviously. Everything else was largely addressed. Additionally, we've continued to work with DOT, and we've reached kind of the next steps with them as well. They didn't really have any comments. We've been in front of them many times before, up into this point, so there really was no surprises. And Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, we've also reached out to DOT about some concerns that the board and the town had, and they addressed that, that we were in alignment with that.
Question, if I may. Mr. Rowley, have you met with the DOT at this site?
I did. I had an online meeting with them, about 8 of their engineers, and they did not recommend any sort of de-acceleration or tapering. That was the primary reason for the meeting.
Okay.
And they did not recommend that in this case. So, got the answer there on that.
Did you get that in writing, Mr. Riley?
They didn't give it, and they won't give it in writing, but provide the testimony that I had the meeting, and that's what they said.
Okay. Thank you.
I believe the other big topic of conversation last time, apologies, on a different board, was the trash enclosure. So we thought it would be best to bring in a rendering of what that trash enclosure looks like. Just for everyone's reference, the trash enclosure is located right here on the site. This rendering is slightly out of date. We went ahead and updated the trash enclosure to be fully brick enclosed, as you can see here, and then painted metal gates up front. So really don't see any type of the containers inside the trash enclosure. Additionally, it was asked if we could landscape this island over here as well. On the plan that we submitted, this is now fully landscaped. And additionally, we also added some landscaping along the frontage here to further shield any kind of traffic coming by the site. So we really beefed up the landscaping on all sides and the trash enclosure as well.
So was any of this in a red line drawing to show changes?
Yep, yeah, they're all redlined and circled in there, correct. That's what I had for high-level comments. I'm happy to talk about any other changes. Everything else was a little technical, which I believe got addressed, and those were the two concerns from the town's perspective, I think from DOT and the trash enclosure that we discussed last time. But happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you. Mr. Riley, on a few of these where it says they recommend, where Tetra Tech recommends doing it as a condition, did you list those conditions, or were you going to wait till we discussed it?
No, I haven't, so we haven't received the peer review report yet, so I think that should be the next order of business.
The one that was your guide for January 4th?
We haven't even
I turned it in
received
earlier
a
this
peer review
afternoon.
report on this project, so
No, it's here tonight.
Oh,
I mean, we should have
Yeah,
that, and
we'll
then
go
we'll know
Okay.
what remains.
okay. So you haven't seen this either?
Nope, no, we have, and that's what I was just talking about.
Oh,
So
that's what I thought.
they issued their peer review report for the site portion of the development. We responded, and those are the red line plans you see before you. And then Tetra Tech was kind enough to get through those responses this week and largely agree, and please interrupt if I'm misspeaking here, but we got most of their comments, and there's a couple in there that they just want to make order of conditions, which were pretty standard from when we reviewed it, and stuff that typically would have to be coordinated afterwards anyway. And then a couple of small items like the light poles and that sort of thing on site.
I think the only other item was the, for all the truck turning movements, it looked like they had to cross that triangle median right here.
Yep. So this was
So I don't know if you have that as mountable curve or?
Yep, yeah, that's all mountable, and that's been a topic of conversation from the very first day we met with the town manager about, and DOT as well, of having this here to really try and separate traffic near the entrance and make them go in certain directions. But it is mountable for that very purpose and was reviewed by the fire department on multiple occasions there.
Larry?
There's a copy of the engineer's report, and this is some DPW comments. I don't know if that got transmitted to you. I didn't send that to you. You're item number 3 on there. You principally starts at the end of page 2, and I think should I go ahead, Mr.?
Well, I was gonna get the report
Okay.
from Mr. Rowley.
Yeah, Mr. Ashley is correct. Most of our comments have been addressed. There are some outstanding items that, he had gone over that, we can work out on the side. There was we added the environmental review. So it looked like there were some inconsistencies in the reporting for the environmental. So I just asked that the LSPs can coordinate on that and try to figure that out. With the removal action and all that. So I think the LSPs could talk on that, and we could figure out a game plan moving forward.
So did you do anything with the LSP?
We haven't talked to their LSP, but our LSP did look at it, yes.
Okay.
So Adam Karachi with Crazy Town. I did talk to Terracon, our LSP, Catherine Johnston, and she reviewed the EA, a lot of acronyms, LRA, and she said that she was fine with it, that they had done what they needed to do.
She put that in writing?
I can get it in writing. I had a phone call. This was last week after we got the document and submitted it.
So I think there's a disagreement there where the LRA, it only went down 4 feet, and there were contamination noted from 11 to, I think, 14 feet below grade.
So the way I'm understanding this is that, and I'll refer to the engineer in one moment, is that everything from ground level to 4 feet seemed to be okay, but then
That was
there's,
what was remediated.
and then there's no answers or questions anything below feet.
Correct.
On this, anything below 4 feet on the site.
So the history of this is that there was previously a different user looking at the site, and they had the assessment done originally back in 2020, and then they pulled out. Ted Nicoli was able to get that report, and that's what we used as a basis. And then he had the work done earlier this year, or last year in February 2023, to have the site cleaned up. And that's the report, the LRA, that was submitted. Just to note, the comments from earlier today did mention that Terracon did the LRA, but that's not entirely accurate. That was done by EA, who did the original assessment back in 2020. Terracon is our peer reviewer. They did the LSI for us when we started looking at the site last year. So they've reviewed the original assessments that were done on the site, and then the LRA for us, as well as provided LSI for Raising Cane's. There's a lot going on there, but I know that Ted Nicoli was able to talk to EA, and they said if there's any questions, they're more than happy to answer them, particularly about the discrepancy, and I think it just needs to be coordinated, like you said, between the LSPs, and just figure out what the issue is there.
So I'd like to refer to the board's engineer.
We received some documentation on the 26th of December, and I spent quite a bit of time with it, and I shared that information with Tetra Tech. I think, this is on page 2, it's item 3.2.1. Engineering recommends the planning board require at the applicant's expense a field licensed site professional to review all associated environmental documents and records and provide a written memo letter for planning board acceptance that the site has been remediated and is compliant or not with Mass DEP and Massachusetts contingency plan. I did suggest way back that you bring a representative to talk specifically about the environmental concerns on the site. That didn't happen. There's a couple documents that are cited but that aren't mentioned. These are the Phase 1 site assessment by EA, and then there's a Phase Site 2 assessment. So I think an LSP needs to look at all the records, not partial records. I'm the person who determined, saw that there was contamination noted below 10 feet, but what was excavated was only to 2 feet. Also, the borings, the geotechnical borings that were done, they also noted the presence of petroleum odor. The other issue is, it mentions groundwater. So I was not able to find any groundwater results. I know Steve Bully may have found some. So if there was some groundwater sampling, my concern, so I think where that leads to me is I think for the board's sake, I think you need a letter from an LSP saying everything's up to snuff, satisfy the state. I don't think it's a big deal. It's a letter memo, and so we need to, what concern on groundwater is if there's construction dewatering. So if that water is impacted, then there needs to be some type of storage and treatment system disposal plan. Additionally, my last recommendation is 3.2.1.7 on page 4. Engineering recommends the planning board also require the applicant pay for peer LSB environmental monitoring during site work associated with excavation and screening of removed soils with a photoionization detector. And before this applicant, LSP, provide a written potential impact soils action plan for the peer LSP's review and acceptance. To screen excavated soils, action to be taken if soils impacted are detected in sampling procedures for characterization and proper, per Massachusetts standards. If there's groundwater pumping is anticipated, then it needs to address groundwater pumping. Was a gas station for a number of years. We have records that show there's contamination at 10 feet that hasn't been removed. One of the recent geotechnical borings shows odor, so having done a lot of work at gas stations, I think would be prudent to have things in place. There's a likelihood that there could be impacted soils, and I think you want to have a plan for addressing those now.
That's absolutely fine. We're doing the same thing in Medford and Fall River. I have an LSP retained. If you want to make that a condition of approval, that the LSP reviews all the documents and gives you one concise report prior to construction beginning, I'm fine with that. Though the nature of the construction is that they will, if they're going to find things, they're going to find it during construction. So it'll be based upon the information we know to date.
So you would need procedures in case, there would need to be written procedures in case that is occurrence. How is that going to be handled? How it's going to be sampled? How things are going to be. Normally, soils have to be stockpiled. They have to be covered. There's things that you have to do to do that.
What you're
properly.
after is a soil management plan, which
Yes.
I'm happy to provide.
Yeah,
as a condition of approval.
And if groundwater is going to be impacted, we need to see the results of that groundwater sampling. Then if groundwater dewatering has happened, if that is necessary for construction, then it needs to encompass the groundwater as well.
That's fine.
There's a bunch of specific engineering things that are in there. I don't think Matt's had a chance to review them. But I can get to those later. I just to close where I was on the environmental picture. I think the idea is to protect everyone. Let's just make sure everything was done properly, and let's be prepared for what could be encountered.
Steve, can I turn to you as your feeling on what Larry is suggesting?
Yeah, I think it's perfectly acceptable. Have an LSP on the project team and on the town side to review the site during construction and for it.
Chris, anything to add?
Great.
Mr. Long? You're awful quiet.
I think he's got it.
So are there any other conditions, Steve, you wanted to mention? I see most of them are resolved, but you wanna just,
Any, they're coordinating with MassDOT as to any, plan changes as a result of that process, that condition for, if anything is changed, that you have to go back to the board for a modification.
Steve, can you just give me the item number on each one? References, please?
That was 22.
22? Okay.
We are currently still reviewing the traffic as well, so we'll have a final order for that.
yeah, without the de-acceleration lane, do you guys see that being an issue with the traffic?
We're requesting one curb cut, we're eliminating 3. So, I mean, I think it's a no-brainer for Mass DOT, and we're cleaning it up significantly. They've been very pleasant to work with and very happy with what we're doing when we've met with them numerous times. So, no, I don't expect any issues.
I mean, with the traffic, with it backing up onto Route 1?
Oh, well,
without
we'll
that
work
lane?
with your police department to put a plan together when we open to make sure that that's mitigated. And
May
that's-
not have as much traffic as you think now that we have 5 chicken places on Route 1.
Well, our office is right near the one in Marlboro, and they had police details and everything out there.
We used to be the state capital.
So in Marlboro, that was actually the town's police department that preferred that we had actually planned to have it and coordinated with the shopping center to have it queued into the shopping center, and then their police department wanted to stack on Boston Post Road, and that was their preference. So we'll do the same thing here. We'll coordinate with your town police department and work with them and do what they prefer to do. If it pleases the board, I'm happy for that to be a condition as well.
I think our only other condition is 26, on comment 26, just whatever comes out of the DPW process, that all that be reflected on the final set of plans. That's all the conditions we want.
And I can get into this, at the appropriate time, Mr. Chair, I can mention some of the aspects of in the engineer's report. I think I've been working with Matt all along, and I think I'm looking at page 23.2.2, use of the private sewer. And I think Matt's trying to schedule the inspection of the private sewer. I think, one of the things I was looking for was a plan and profile, and then nothing exhaustive, but just a capacity assessment. I think last thing I want you to do is be making chicken fingers and we find out the sewer doesn't work. So I think you've probably already done that, but I think something on that, because it goes quite a bit of ways to Nikolai Place, and they've agreed to camera it, so it's always good to see what's there. So
Yeah, just real quick on that, Larry, sorry. We've been trying to schedule that, but with the holidays, it's just been tough with the sub-consultant, and we're gonna involve the DPW engineering on all parts of that, so, not a problem.
No, and we've talked, and I think the goal is to, anyway, the residents, I think I was just trying to protect the residents. I don't know if you had a chance to pick up the utilities. I know that's your family, Mr. Nikolai out there, but I think the extent you can show the utilities that go back to those, I just want to make sure they're identified and protected. You'll know if you lose service right away, but, they are your own private utilities. We can talk about that.
Yep, yeah, we went out and SUE'd all those utilities going back there. I think, Larry, last time in our conversation, sorry, this board is like in the worst spot here. That you may have thought there was another water line back there, and we were gonna look at that when we cambered the
Okay.
line, and that's not a problem, but yeah.
Okay. Good, minimal. My 3.2.4 is that asphalt requirement is not for private. I think that's for public, and you're not really doing any street in the public, and the street is Route 1, so it's not Mass. My comment there is I think you've got some details in your geotechnical report for on-site, and so that comment's not really applicable anymore. I think what you're proposing in your geotechnical report is adequate for the site. So that town asphalt requirement, That was if, yeah, that would be if you were in a town roadway or a sidewalk. So,
Okay.
you know, the only difference is you don't have the additional 6 inches of crushed stone. But I think you, you know, it's detailed well in your sectional report. Some of these, 3.2.5, that is just from the DPRC comments. I think, you know, I think the engineer shall provide engineering O&M information for grease trap interceptor. So I think, you know, that's, the comment was just acknowledged, it wasn't responded to. So I think, you know, I think that just needs to be forthcoming. Sometimes you acknowledge the comment, it doesn't really,
We can put it right into our O&M plan if that makes everything better.
perfect. We talked about roof infiltration. I said it was required. I think it may be somewhere up in here, but I think the big thing is we want to see, I'm not sure where the roof drains.
Number 41, I think that's addressed in 41. Or is that the roof drain connection?
I think that was a comment that Tetra Tech had, and I think that's just one thing we have to clarify with each other. But I think we were in general agreement about how the stormwater system worked, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Steve.
Yeah, I think it's showing, they showed the laterals from the roof drains to the system. I had just requested that any pipe bends be at a manhole instead of, you know, the 45 down the line, so.
We don't have a problem adding that, so that's fine.
That's for the large diameter pipe, the laterals are fine.
You're not collecting the roof water, but I'm not sure where, you know, that you've got, I'm not sure where the roof drains to. It goes to the site water, which goes to your treatment system. That's not an infiltration system, right?
Yeah.
It's a treatment system. So the areas are included in the drainage report, but I just don't know where the drains are coming, where the roof drains daylight.
Oh, okay. So we have a couple different roof areas. So the canopy area over here, that is collected and that goes to the detention system along with some of the associated parking areas. The roof drains from the building go out to this water, stormwater main over here, and then get into a water quality unit, which then ultimately goes out back, and that's where it goes out today. But it gets treated through the water quality unit and then goes out back after being treated.
Okay, I think it'd be nice just to see how, I don't see the roof. Have you seen, Steve, the roof drains on the plan?
Yeah, so all the roof drains, I don't know if you have the plan with you. All the roof drains tie into the drain system, like you said.
Is that on the new plan?
It is.
Yep.
Okay. I
Yeah,
still
you
don't
do.
have I gotta find the copies.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's shown on the new plans, I just based on the old plan.
Then all the new lines doghouse into the existing, there's an
Excellent,
existing line.
I'll take a look at it. One of the things is granite curbing. I think I was just, you're doing granite curbing on the outside privately, you know, requesting it, I think it's just a request. It's not requirement. I know interior, your curbs are all concrete. I think if you look at, the one thing is if you're gonna keep the concrete, then I just need a detail for granite curb, because you are doing some granite curbing.
Okay. I thought we had one in there. If not, we can certainly get you one. That's not a problem.
Is that mountable curb in there too, the details?
Yep. Yep. Again, if it's not, we can certainly get it for you.
Comment 3.2.5.10 is elevation for the coordinates. I can see on the survey plan that they mentioned vertical datum of NGV 88. I think part of the there's no reference to a coordinate system. You know, are you on Massachusetts State Plane coordinates?
I'll confirm with the surveyor, and we can have it updated right on the survey if it's not on there.
Yeah, because I think ultimately we'll get these on AutoCAD, and if they're in Mass State coordinates, it's just helpful. It's more useful to the town in the long run. And I think That's it. There was some specific DPW questions. I did give you a copy of the DPW comments that I got relatively recently. That was in the documents for the engineer's report. There's some specific things, I don't need to go through them. Matt, you and I can talk on those. There are 12 of those. So those are relatively minor. I have some specific drawing comments. Those are 3.2.7 on page 7. And I think we can go through those.
I found this on the web.
Talk to me and watch my So I think.
What did she find?
That's it. I think, just some terms of PSI concrete, and then you can look at that 3.2.7.5 is just a specific, just some minor things I saw in the plan. I mean, you're talking 6-inch copper, type K. I don't know if they make 6-inch type K copper, so that would be, you just have to make it consistent with the detail. And I think these are specific issues that we can address.
I haven't seen anything in here jump out at me.
No.
And a couple mislabels on the plan. I don't think we'll be installing such a copper.
It's minor. I think one of the questions is town stormwater infrastructure. I think, from the drainage report, it says the proposed redevelopment site is limited to lease area within lot 4, eastern portion of lot 6. It consists of 1.01 acres. Is that what's being disturbed? I think if I just look at the site where Raising Cane the building is going, I think you're only, what area of the site is being disturbed?
Gotcha. It's right around an acre. It's pretty much right at the mark. I believe it's just under an acre, if I remember correctly. But I'd have to confirm.
What happens if you're 1.0 or greater?
We'd have to prepare SWIP
EPA
and
general,
everything else.
and then-
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and we'd apply with that if we're above an acre. Absolutely.
If you can just confirm that.
Yep.
Yeah, and if you do prepare a site disturbance plan, then, just, if that's a separate plan, then just stamp it, so.
Absolutely, yep.
But that, mostly it's fairly minor stuff that I can address with the engineer. And I think the big thing is the environmental work, just to protect the town.
You can add that as a condition. So just to recap, Mr. Riley, for conditions, keeping track over there. You want to just reiterate what the conditions we have for the motion?
I need, are we talking about the draft decision, because he just
Is that addition?
he just added a lot of review that needs to happen before we can.
Some of it I feel necessary, though.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Larry, I think the condition would be that we'd have to satisfy all of DPW's comments, which I think we both agree is minor, we can deal with as we move forward. And besides the environmental, that probably wants to be its own condition, sounds like.
I think that satisfied DPW and engineering comments, I've worked well with Matt already. That's not an issue. Those that'll be in the plan submission. I'll just have to look at the most recent plan. I think we both agree it's not a lot.
Okay, so that'll be covered under satisfied DPW and engineering concerns. Chris, what do we have additional to that?
So there's the requirement for a peer-reviewed LSP to review everything he mentioned. I need a whole condition language on that for the scope.
I can provide you with some.
And our RSP's currently reviewing what we have to date, just to be sure.
I think it's just, it's review of all records to date for for compliance and then preparation of soils, potential soil and groundwater action plan if contamination is encountered on the site. So it's looking, so there's two phases. It's looking at all records now for compliance. And then when we get to construction, there's a component for field
Yeah,
inspection.
I'll need specific language on that. That's more than just reviewing what's been done. It's a whole nother investigation beyond what's been done, and then reporting those findings, and then that's a lot, so.
It's a lot to condition.
And I think you could just say, the applicant shall, have an LSP on the team and shall meet the requirements of the MCP. And you leave it at that, because the LSP is taking the responsibility for that condition. So that's, you don't have to spell out everything that they would have to do, unless you want something in addition. But if
It sounds like you've been asking for something in addition.
No, what Steve said is if you write that down verbatim, that is acceptable, because.
Why don't you write it down and give it to me, and I'll put it in.
We'll do.
What you just said, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll talk tomorrow, you can.
Yeah,
send
we
me something.
can.
But you just said it's all the things we don't know beyond 4 feet that haven't been investigated and need testing, and that's what I heard.
And I think we still have some peer review to go through, because I think our LSPs do need to talk about those disagreements. But on top of that, having the project conditioned on having an LSP on board throughout construction.
I'll write up, Steve will send me the language he just said. I'll summarize what I have from the engineer's report and send you something, Chris, and I'll copy the chair on that.
And what's our timeline after, do we have to have it back to them? I just want to give them a timeline. So, once we vote this tonight, we have to have the approval to them. Is it 14 days? Okay, just so you're aware that we do have a timeline to get this compiled, this information. Right. Okay.
It puts a little pressure on the applicant as well, because they're bringing in the LSP to review what's theirs. Isn't that?
She's already on board.
She's on board.
She's already reviewed the documents. I just need to have her put something in writing, and they're doing a soil management plan for me in Medford, and they can put it together. They put that one together in about 48 hours, so it's doable.
And look at the groundwater results. If the groundwater is impacted, I don't know how deep your foundations are, but if there's going to be anything pumping from the ground as well.
Yeah, we'll look at all that.
The building is a
just go
slab
down
on
to-
grade?
Oh,
It's slab on grade,
it
so
is?
we're going down like
4
4
foot
feet.
footings?
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, you're not going to be into groundwater then.
Yeah.
Anybody have anything else?
Any other questions from any board members?
Bob, no questions? Joe?
We covered it.
Mr. Riley, you have started some conditions in a draft?
I've started one, yeah. And really, it's a lot of our standard conditions, because they've addressed so much.
Yep.
So the remaining items were the Tetra Tech items that were unresolved and needed further review and agreement. And I have 22 and 26 on that.
Yes. And we did note that in our most recent letter, so.
We have hours of operation?
Got hours of operation, got all our standard language, got all the construction, oversight requirements. I mean, I haven't heard anything back from Attorney Magnin, so there's no languages of concern. So, yeah, everything in there seems to be fine. The project-specific things are, again, the Tetra Tech letter, that's really about it. There's a site plan and master plan involved in here because it is business highway district, but you're approving those concurrently if you motion about that. I did add one that, this goes way back to the pre-application meeting. Designation of employee parking spaces, that they should be on the north the easterly side of the site, on the corner there.
Over here.
Yeah, outside of the stacking lanes,
Yep.
so that there would be no conflicts with customers coming in the stacking lanes, and probably
Yep.
recall that comment. It's an easy thing to do, just designate it.
We can note that on the plan, not a problem.
8 spaces. And they did all the other things that we talked about or asked. You know, the landscaping is a vast improvement, so we appreciate that. Makes a big difference. And, you know, the overall improvement of the landscape plan throughout the site. It's good. I mean, the Mass DOT, you know, feedback was strange. It was, well, we have shoulders on Route 1 and those serve as de-acceleration lanes, and again, they had 8 engineers on the call, so I wasn't going to, you know, the only thing I asked is, I'm probably going to be asked by my board, there are many de-acceleration taper lanes all up and down Route 1 in Saugus. Why wouldn't we want one here? And my sense was, you know, they mentioned the Wendy's exit and how there would be a conflict in people when they see a de-acceleration lane, they think it's theirs. So people would come out of the Wendy's and get in it. I don't know about that, but other than meeting they have design standards that have to be met, and this would meet those. But they, you know, essentially said the shoulder is an adequate de-acceleration lane. It was odd to me, so that's why I kind of reacted the way I am. But nonetheless, they didn't recommend it. I think they just don't want to. In this day and age, they don't want to maintain an additional lane like that in there right away, so that's my guess.
Does the board have any questions? Oh. This is a public meeting. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak in favor or against? Please come to the podium. Hearing none, we move on.
Mr. Chair, the same thing's under standard conditions, under standard conditions, you know, stormwater, that's, I think I would, just like I suggested for the other, for Maddie's place, add stormwater bylaw and EPA construction general, as they apply, they may apply it, it could be either apply. The other thing is per the last one, under issuance, number 26, prior to occupation of the permit, yeah, I just suggest adding DPW engineering. No occupancy permit shall be issued by the building inspector until all conditions of decision. Somehow, there's a fair amount that the DPW engineering are involved with, so a lot of our stuff says that when they get, you know, things we need before the occupancy permit.
Would you be kind enough to send that over to Chris?
I will.
Chris comments?
Mr. Chair, would you entertain a motion to close the public hearing?
I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Vote of the board?
Aye.
Aye. Bob sustains. Motion passes 3-0.
Okay, now I'll make a motion. You wanna make a motion, Phil? No. What?
You all set?
I'm gonna make a motion to approve the site plan review permit and the master plan permit for 799 Broadway, as presented here with the conditions stated by Chris Riley and to satisfy the DPW and engineering comments. And other conditions that you had mentioned, you want to reiterate them?
Yeah, you can second that motion, but you have to approve the findings first. We haven't approved the findings.
Findings? Oh, I thought we did that last time. We didn't?
No, that was 1639.
Mr. Boley?
Are we finalizing the traffic? We still have a traffic review out there. I don't know if, does the board want us to finish that, or?
We should finish it. We should finish it. turnaround time?
We're in the middle, I mean, we're in the middle of it right now.
You're in the middle of it.
I just want to make sure that if the board's voting on the project tonight, I'm gonna,
The traffic study was going to be a concern of the acceleration lane, or what was that?
we received the traffic report, we were in the process of reviewing that traffic report. I don't know if the acceleration lane was mentioned in it, but
Mr. Riley?
we're just in the middle of that process.
Oh, imperative is the
You
traffic
could have a
report.
condition that any recommendations from the Tetra Tech traffic peer review shall be
Considered as well.
I don't, these time-sensitive sort of conditions, the applicant has to understand and agree to that. It's very open-ended. Will probably be reasonable things, small things, but we don't know.
What would you recommend? I
Just
mean,
say
you-
condition that upon receipt of the final traffic peer review, the applicant shall comply with any unresolved or outstanding items that are identified. Is that okay with you?
I think that's.
It could be very,
I think that's fine. I think the one thing I do want to note is DOT does have the jurisdiction in some parts of that, so it would have to agree with DOT if Tetra Tech is something that contradicted with them. But I think we could satisfy anything
And
there.
we're aware of that, so like,
Yeah.
our comments would be.
And you mentioned a 14-day turnaround, so when you mentioned timing,
For the conditions, I think.
so what is the concern there?
we don't know when they'll be done with the report. So it can't be a time certain condition.
Okay, I wish I knew that before I closed the public hearing. If we're looking to continue, do you guys feel you need more
Could open
time
it back up.
than that?
Yeah.
Make a motion to,
No, right now you're talking the draft decision and conditions. You don't need the public hearing review for that.
I know, but are they comfortable with that, and they think they're gonna be done with that within the 14 days? Because once we voted, we have to give them the decision in 14 days.
No, they need to supply information to the board as well.
Sorry, can I just ask a question? Do we have to address all the questions in 14 days, or just the conditions have to be finalized within those 14 days?
We're supposed to sign the site plan review permit for you, so the condition should be done in that time frame, correct?
So the condition says, whatever Tetra Tech comes up with in the way of unresolved issues, the applicant
So they could
must-
address those after the 14 days?
Yes, the
Okay,
applicant must
okay,
satisfy.
Okay. Everybody's comfortable with that?
Yep.
Okay.
That'll give us enough time.
Okay. So,
So is that your motion?
that's the motion.
The motion to approve the finding.
We have to do a
Approve the
motion.
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve the finding.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3-0.
One abstain.
One abstain.
Second.
Next meeting, you can vote.
I should be serving coffee.
I told you not to go past 9, you were gonna pass your bedtime, past all of our bedtimes. Okay,
That
now,
motion was fine,
now I make a
and
motion. Okay,
the motion was fine the way you stated it, and the conditions I have are the language Larry's gonna get me on 6 and 26. And the condition language on the LSP peer review.
and DPW and engineering, okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3-0.
One abstain.
One abstain.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Have a good night. Mr. Chair, I make my favorite motion of all, to adjourn.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.
That's it. You adjourn.